It can be easy to see Krow as a continuation of the same boss theme set by the previous game. Take a common enemy and make it big. But I feel Crow's Nest actually highlights and emphasizes just how much Rare lifted their game with designing the new bosses. This is part 6 of Overthinking Donkey Kong Country 2. Before we dive into the fight at Crow's Nest, I want to take a second to set the scene a little. Diddy and Dixie leave home to find their friend DK, picking up where their last adventure left off, on the ruins of K. Rool's flagship, the Gangplank Galleon. They board at the quarterdeck, moving through the mess of rigging on the main mast, down to the shattered middle deck, into the flooded mess of the hold, and finally, ascending the length of the foremast, up to the Crow's Nest. Bit by bit, making their way from the back of the ship to the front, from the lowest point to the highest, as day turns to night. As for why it's daylight up in the Crow's Nest, my only guess is maybe night passed down in Lockjaw's locker, and the darkness of Topsail Trouble was an early morning storm. Or maybe they had a breather between Topsail Trouble and Crow's Nest. It doesn't matter. To understand what makes the boss battle itself so special, some more context is needed. In the original DKC, each boss battle, save for King K. Rool, took place in the middle of a banana horde, and each boss, save for K. Rool, was simply a larger version of a common enemy found throughout the game. Two of those bosses were even simple palette swaps with increased difficulty. And again, save for K. Rool, each boss really only had one trick. And that was fine. Not super imaginative, and arguably one of the game's weak points, but it worked. It didn't diminish the game in any way, it just didn't add much either. Now let's take a look at the battle on Crow's Nest. It's a small arena, almost uncomfortably small. Krow attacks by picking up giant eggs from his nest and dropping them down onto the sail you're standing on. The eggs bounce towards you, and you have to either jump on them or wait for them to stop before picking them up and throwing them back at Krow. After doing that twice, he begins charging the nest, bouncing the eggs out at you. This time, instead of bouncing from the opposite end of the arena, the eggs are poised to land right on top of you. Not only that, but some of them aren't going to be usable. The eggs don't stop falling once you've managed to find the right one, so you need to be careful when picking up the egg to throw at Krow, who's now circling the nest, posing a hazard all his own. 2 more hits and he's down. Not a particularly difficult fight, but harder than most boss fights you go through in the first game. You should be starting to see how Rare really upped their boss game for DKC2 here too. First, and least importantly, while the tile set is just a level tile set, the boss fight has unique assets in the nest and the giant eggs. Second, the fight has phases. Instead of being jump on enemy's head a handful of times, with the enemy increasing speed throughout, the fight is a sort of puzzle, with a solution that isn't immediately obvious, forcing you to spend the first chunk of it on the back foot before figuring it out. And it's dynamic, changing things up as soon as you've got Krow's number. I think it's cool how Krow, at first glance, seems like yet another common enemy made bigger. Could be a cheeky nod to the first game, I don't know. But Krow's design is completely unique to the mini neckies, with his belt and tricorn hat. And it's worth mentioning that at this point in the game, we haven't actually seen mini neckies yet, so that comparison won't be noted by new players. There's also a cheeky nod to the DKC bosses coming back as palette swaps, but it's gonna be a long while before we get into that. Or have we discussed that already? That's it. Episode 6 of Overthinking Donkey Kong Country 2 is done. As is Donkey Kong December. Only took an additional 6 months. In all seriousness though, I'm sorry it dragged out so long, and I really appreciate you all just taking it in stride. Life outside of YouTube has been super intense this year. On the plus side, it hasn't exactly been bad, just really busy. Most of these videos were written, and some of them were even recorded back in November and December, and it's just taken me this long to finish them. I am obviously very far behind schedule, but I have a lot of new stuff cooked up and in various states of completion, including the next batch of Overthinking Resident Evil videos, for you long-suffering fans of the series. There's also a few new Overthinking series in the works, as well as some new ideas. I intend to do Donkey Kong December again this year, but if I do, I'll make sure it actually releases in December. I think that's it for now. Hopefully the wait for more DKC2 stuff won't be too long. Thanks again for being so patient, and I hope 2024 has been good to you all so far. It's been okay to me. See you in the next one.